guys, and welcome back to Couch Critics.
Hi guys! Today we're filming a new episode and it's about the movie Lady Bird.
Yes, today we're gonna review Lady Bird, aka the best Greta Gerwig movie. And if you don't agree, I don't agree with you, because Lady Bird to me is the best.
It is a very good movie.
Yeah.
It is a very good coming of age, very
Mhm.
relatable movie. And for some reason it's a very warm movie as
Yeah.
well. I don't know. I really liked it.
Sorry, I
It was
interrupted you.
published a few years ago, but it's still a classic. This is why we're reviewing it.
Which Greta Gerwig's movies did you watch other than Lady
I
Bird?
watched Lady Bird, Barbie.
Mhm.
Tried starting to watch Promising Young Woman. Couldn't.
Oh, that's
Oh,
from the
that's
creator of
Emerald Fennell.
Saltburn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Saltburn.
Yeah.
What other Greta Gerwig movies is there out there?
Little Woman?
Ah, yeah, Little Women.
Yeah.
You told me about it. I started watching it. I couldn't finish it. Well, I will probably watch it again.
Mhm.
Meryl Streep, Timothée Chalamet,
Yes.
Florence Pugh. I mean, I have to watch it, but yeah, so many movies, so many great movies, and so little time.
Yeah.
What gets to me.
It's so frustrating,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
What other Greta Gerwig movies is there out there? Is there more?
These are the only three ones that I know. She used to be an actress. I don't know if she
Oh yeah.
directed anything before.
I think Lady Bird was her debut movie to
I
direct.
think so too.
And I think before that she only co-directed another movie, but Lady Bird was her
Debut.
debut.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I've watched Lady Bird, Little Woman, and
Barbie.
Barbie, and Lady Bird is the reason why I did not like Barbie.
Okay.
Yeah.
They do have a very, very different vibe.
Mhm.
But I think that's what makes a great director when sometimes it's nice when directors have their signatures, but
Okay.
also sometimes it's nice when they know how to adapt it to the story.
Mhm.
And yeah.
But that's the thing, I felt like it was missing Greta Gerwig's
Yeah.
signature. And that leads me to something that I really wanted to talk to you about that I experienced this week. And
Okay.
it's really I don't know if it's just me, but anyways, I feel like a lot of things this week happened that led me to this thought. And I did not talk to you about it when you came because
Oh
I
my
really
God.
wanted to talk about it on the podcast.
Although we did have our debriefing session before we
Yeah,
started
our
filming.
2 hours debriefing session.
We're just gonna have a little talk with the tea, and then we ended up
Never
talking.
ends.
Never.
So, in the beginning of the week, I stumbled across this Damon Dominique video. He's a YouTuber.
I love him.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he basically made this 15-minute video about how we as consumers and viewers are turning into nothing because
We're turning into sponges, just absorbing everything.
Yeah, our attention span is very limited. We do not care about the quality of what we watch. We have very low standards as viewers. And yeah, like I just found that to be so interesting because as I was watching the video, I was so interested in what he was saying, but I had that urge of like clicking on something else.
Yeah.
Then during the week, we were supposed to watch The Dreamers by Bernardo Bertolucci. I like saying his name.
In Italian.
In Italian. That's our best Italian impersonation. With the hands.
No offense to any Italians out there.
Yeah.
We love the culture. We're just not Italian.
And
sorry.
so we ended up changing our minds and we're gonna review Lady Bird obviously during this.
I could not finish that movie. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, we'll get into that later if you want. So when that wasn't my first time watching The Dreamers. I've already seen it like a few years ago, and The Dreamers was kind of like one of those movies that got me interested in the movies, like in general, that really inspired me. And I used to be very impressed by those characters, how witty they were, and how they knew all of these things about books and about movies. And when I watched it this time, I found them very pretentious. And then I asked myself why. And I was like, the only reason that I came up with is because my standards as me have lowered when it comes to what I watch and what I read.
Oh, okay.
And it all led me to Ladybirds. And when I rewatched it.
Okay.
Yeah, when I rewatched it, it kind of like gave me this silver lining that we as viewers have very low standards nowadays. It made me question everything that I said during the Mean Girl review, anyone but you review, and it made me like almost regret watching them because it's a waste of time. Okay, like the main goal is entertainment, but the bar is very low.
Okay, that turned into a whole manifesto, and I love
Yeah.
this. I have a question for you. Do
Mm.
you now that you've discovered that, do you think you like Lady Bird less, or is Lady Bird part of the movies that you would watch with higher standards?
Lady Bird sets the standards of
Okay.
how
Okay.
good should a comedy slash drama be.
Okay.
So it's literally the standard.
Okay, I
So
agree. It is a very cinematic movie, I would
mhm,
say. It's the storyline is very interesting. And I talked with you a little bit
yeah,
about it before we started filming, but I do compare that movie a lot to The Edge of 17 in
with
terms
Haley
of,
Stanfield.
yeah,
Yeah.
in terms of relationship with a mother. Both of the movies are about a teenager going through a rebel phase who has a better relationship with her father than with her
Mhm,
mother, who has an older brother who seems to be the mother's favorite. And it has this
mhm.
whole vibe. But to come back to what you were saying,
Yeah.
I feel like Ladybird is the cinematic version of that story,
Mhm.
whereas The Edge of 17 is the commercial version of that
Exactly.
same story in a different way. So yeah.
So like my point is that when did we become so passive about our standards? And how, I mean, of course we're nobodies to like say that something is great or not great, but you owe something to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You owe a certain quality to
Yeah.
yourself. So was like my little rant that kind of had something to do with Ladybird, because like Ladybird made me realize a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just wanted to share it with you in on camera because I feel like it's interesting
Yeah. I'm
to
glad you did that on camera because it does open up to debates. Maybe like I would have forgotten what I wanted to say.
Mhm.
It's nice to always have a spontaneous reaction.
Yeah.
But yeah, to come back to the Dreamers, I know we're going on a tangent out here, but I really want to talk about that
Mhm.
movie as well. I
Yeah.
started watching it halfway through. I couldn't finish it, but I do think it was a good movie, and I love how you said it was what word did you use? Like
Pretentious.
pretentious. Yes,
Mhm.
because I do agree with that. I was watching it and I was like, this is a piece of art. I do agree with it,
Mhm.
but it's also very pretentious. And yes, it's a great movie, but I I was tired of the whole incestuous, very
I agree with that.
profane aspect of it.
I totally agree about the fact that it could be too much.
Yeah.
But do we think that it's pretentious because we don't know the references? I mean, when it comes to movies,
Yeah.
there has been so many great references to very successful movies and
Yeah.
in that movie, and it's literally a movie about movies
Yeah.
and about choosing art over war, and how what the way that you view the world reshapes the world. And yeah, I think that it's kind of like, yeah, it's not for everyone and it's a
Hmm.
hard movie to watch. It takes time to like it, but I feel like it's the kind of movie that requires you to put in the effort to understand it. And I feel like I've become kind of lazy, and instead of like watching those movies, reading those books that the movie was suggestion, I was just like telling myself, oh, it's those are pretentious characters. Louis Carrel is insane. Eva Green is too much, and yeah.
Yeah. What's funny about The Dreamers, this is turning into a review of many movies, but it's
See, you're
okay.
reviewing it. You're reviewing the
Yes,
Dreamers
we are
without
reviewing
even wanting to.
without even finishing the movie. What's funny about it is that it was filmed in 2003, but the story happens in 1967 or
Yeah.
around that time. And the movie they reference to
Mhm,
are from the 1930s.
mhm.
And I feel like if you really want to get into classical movies and you want to know what are the really good movies from the early 1900s, that movie you should watch it. Take notes of all the movies they refer to and
Yeah.
just go and watch all of them.
Mhm,
But yeah, I did like that aspect of
mhm.
it, and I remember we said we were gonna watch it because we saw this TikTok about them in the museum and
Running
recreating.
in the Louvre.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think that was the beauty of it. Also, it's a very pretentious movie because we watched it in French and
But
we were
it
able to
has
understand
been
it.
translated.
Ah, it has.
Yeah, like in the original version, I think they didn't translate all of it, but like
Okay.
most of it is translated, because in the original version they speak English.
Okay, in the original
Yeah,
version? Okay, see,
yeah,
I felt like the sync between the
yeah.
voices and okay, wow.
But it's not easy to watch. Like the circumstances were bad.
Yeah, I
I
do
feel like
agree.
if you had the chance to see it in a movie theater,
Or like on at least the TV screen, I
yeah,
would have enjoyed it more.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, that sums up our Dreamers review.
One last thing, please.
Sure,
I
yeah.
love how it's called The Dreamers in English and The Innocents in French. And I think that's
Yeah.
such a beautiful translation. And it also comes to show how sometimes translating things word for word doesn't work. You
Mhm.
have to go to the essence of the movie to know how it translates to because yeah, that's it. That's all. It's the innocence in French and dreamers in English, and it got me thinking like, do you have to be an
Mhm.
innocent to dream? And anyway,
Yeah.
that's
So
Ladybird.
Ladybird.
Sorry.
So yeah, we literally changed our mind yesterday and we decided that we were going to review Ladybird, and I was busy until midnight,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was like, I had the brilliant idea of just like checking the trailer. I was like, let's just check it out because we're filming today,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't have time to watch it during the day. It took me 10 seconds of
To just
watching that trailer. The trailer starts with Lady Bird having an argument with her mom, and as soon as I saw Laurie Metcalf and Saoirse Ronan on my phone, I was like, no, I have to watch it again at midnight, and I had to go to work today,
that's
and
what we
so
call a
I
good work ethic
bought
or
no control ethic.
a workaholism.
Exactly. So I bought the movie on YouTube because I don't know who's responsible for Our Misery on Netflix. They
They
removed.
removed it from Netflix?
Yeah,
I watched it not a
it's
long time
gone.
ago. Oh, really?
Yeah.
That is very
I
disappointing.
don't know why they do that, but anyways, I've watched it on YouTube, and I was going to only watch like some scenes of it, but I ended up watching the whole thing, and I it reminded me of how much I loved that movie. It's literally one of my favorites movie ever. It has the same place in my heart as After Sun and All of
Oh,
Us Strangers. And yeah, we'll talk more about why you like that movie or not. I don't know if you liked it
I
or not.
really did.
And yeah, so what was your experience watching Lady Bird?
I felt like a teenager again.
Okay.
Yeah, I just felt like a teenager
Hmm.
again. This whole rebellious phase, this I want
Yeah.
to be something kind of
Hmm.
because Ladybird is basically this teenage girl who doesn't feel like she fit in.
Hmm.
She fits in and she just wants to stand out and she wants to do something and her way of doing something is to just like frustrate everybody
Yeah.
around her and challenge them. And I think that really sums up the essence of being a teenager.
Hmm.
And I love that about this movie. It's just very witty, very messy, and I don't know. I liked it. What about you?
Um, it's more about how you feel when you watch Lady Bird. I feel like with movies like After Sun, All of Us Strangers, and Lady Bird, you don't really remember what you watched. Like if you ask me about my favorite scene, I'll probably won't be able to name one. But it's more about how you feel. And when I watch Lady Bird, I just feel like I've just had the warmest hug from my favorite person in the world. I
Oh,
feel back home, whatever however you define home. It could
yeah.
be a person or a place. And I feel like I can connect with that old version of me, that
Mm-hmm.
teenage version of me.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's such a precious movie because to be able to to take someone to those places demands a certain level of creativity and professionalism and talent, absolute talent.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
awareness of nostalgia, I would say, to just
yeah,
like remember how it feels like to be that person. I don't know.
yeah.
Love
And
it.
it's always, I know I've said that this during a lot of reviews, but it's always those movies where nothing happens.
Yeah.
They just reflect, they're a perfect mirror of someone's life
Yeah.
without too many high highs and low lows. So it's just so interesting to watch because when you don't have this crazy plot, you get put to be more artistic in like the small segments of the movie. And yeah, I don't know if what I say makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
It makes total sense, at least to me, but yeah.
And it does capture perfectly where it's like to 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 run away from yourself in the hopes of finding yourself.
And to want to be somewhere else. I don't know
Yeah,
about you, but she always said that she wanted to leave Sacramento or whatever. She was living in California. I mean,
yeah.
why would you want to leave California? Well, for many reasons, but
Mhm.
it's, I don't know. She just wanted to go to New York, and it's really big. Like, it frames what it's like to just want to be somewhere else because you want to go on an adventure
Mhm.
and you want to experience life on your own terms. And yeah,
But that's really interesting because I feel like a lot of people experience that. You when you're younger, you are aching for these new
yeah,
experiences. You think that you belong somewhere else, and it's so interesting to see that when you go somewhere else, you hold on to those pieces that made you you so tightly. And there's something that I always like to ask my friends who moved abroad, and I always ask them, do you think that the version that exists, the version of you that exists right now, is it like the most authentic version of you? And it's always interesting to see those answers, and why is it the most authentic version of them? And does that mean that our the oldest version of us are not valid? Do they still exist? I'm all
oof.
over the place.
Oof, whoa.
Okay, the latest.
We had a technical problem, but I love
Yes.
where we left off. You were asking if the person, well, they're gonna know because
Mhm.
it only cuts up for like half a second
Yeah.
on after editing. But do you ask yourself that question?
If the person of me that used to
Yeah,
exist before still exists,
yeah,
I feel like I used to think that whenever we move through the years we let go of the
yeah.
past versions of us, but I feel like it's an idea that society is trying to like force on us, because especially us as women, we don't we're convinced from like an early age that we can't be too many things at once, so we
Mhm.
always have to choose, and we can't be too many things with too many people at different places. We can't be different people,
Yeah,
and I don't know why we can do that. I like I feel like the version of me that exists here in Montreal, for example,
yeah,
is very different from the one that exists back home where I grew up, or like when I go abroad for a
yeah,
trip.
yeah.
And it doesn't mean that I'm fake, because I do have the same essence and the same values. It's just that it translates differently.
I think it's just like adapting to things. It's like when you're wearing glasses. Like for example, you wear
Yeah.
glasses with pink filters, glasses
Hmm.
with yellow filters. You're gonna see things differently, but it doesn't mean that the thing is different.
Yeah.
So I guess it always depends on your environment.
What
That's my
about you?
opinion. That's a very good question because I always think about, especially when I first got here, I kept
Yeah.
asking myself like, what would have happened if I had stayed in
Mhm.
my hometown? Because Canada is a far way, like
Yeah.
is very far away from home. But I do like to think that this is the best version of myself. I'm convinced of that.
Mhm.
It's mainly because I love the person that I'm becoming, and I just love the decision I've made. But it doesn't mean that I'm not the person I used to be. It just means, see, that's the tricky part because it doesn't mean I'm not that person anymore, even though I've changed. The decision I've taken when I was 18,
Mhm.
20, even later, these are the decisions that made me. So
Mhm.
even though I don't like to see it as a change, I like to
Mhm.
see it as an upgrade. Like I'm no longer, yes, I'm no longer, I'm deep down, I'm the same person, but I've upgraded. It's like, it's like an
Definitely.
application.
I used to think the same thing, but that it does insinuate that like the person that we used to be was a downgrade. And I feel like it could
Oof.
be, it's a very toxic way of looking back at who we were. Because and that's something that I realized yesterday watching Ladybird. It made me think of who I was, of when I was 14, 15, and 16, and all those dreams that I used to have, and all everything that I've achieved now 10 years later. I'm 25. Anyways, side note, that I've achieved like 10 years later. And I feel like for the first time I looked at that person that I was with so much respect and so much compassion and so much empathy. And that's something that Lady Bird forces you to do. it's just to think of that person as someone who had dreams and who existed at a certain time and who's not a downgrade. It's someone who is valid at a certain time and who will always exist at that time.
I don't think it's a downgrade. And I have a lot of love for the person I used to be when I
Yeah.
was a teenager, for like this whole rebellious phase I went through and all of that. I
Mm,
don't think it's a downgrade, but I think that if right now in my 20s I had the same attitude I had when I was a teen, that would be it. Like the downgrade would be not evoluting, the downgrade would be
mm,
not getting better. It doesn't mean that I wasn't good. I just think it I was I was really good for someone who was 14 years old. But
yeah.
as you grow up, you have to, you know, advance, move
Mm,
up, kind of become more mature. Because if you're as rebellious at 23 years old, sometimes it's good to be rebellious. Sometimes I wish I still had
mm,
that flame I used to have as a
yeah.
teenager and I was still like going for,
Mm,
with for stuff with the same passion. But sometimes it's good to just be more quiet and
mm.
calm, I guess. Maybe not. Now I'm gonna question myself
Yeah.
on you.
Do you think that Lady Bird was rebellious?
I think so, yeah. Just
Okay.
the fact that she didn't want to be called by her name, Christine, and she wanted to be called Ladybird, that's rebellious at its best. I remember the scene where the someone at theater during an audition asked her, "Is that your given name, Ladybird?" And she was like, "Yes, it's my given name. I gave it to myself. It
By me.
was
I give it
given by
to me
me."
by me.
Yeah.
I don't think she was rebellious. I think
No,
she was a normal teenager who was trying to explore the extents of her personality, and I think that everything that she did was normal. It wasn't, at least it wasn't rebellious to me.
aren't teenagers supposed to be rebellious? Like, if you're a normal teenager and
But
rebellious, it's kind of.
how would we define rebellious? Because to me, rebellious includes like being a troublemaker or like being.
See, okay, maybe we have different
I think
definitions of
so, yeah.
rebellion. Yeah,
Yeah. Because
but
she was trying to have good grades and
yeah,
like to not, even when she disappointed her mom, she didn't want to really disappoint her. Yeah, Lady Bird. I love Lady
Lady
Bird.
Bird.
I loved so many of these scenes. What were your favorite scenes if you can remember a few?
My favorite scene is the last scene. It's when she moves to New
Yeah.
York, goes to church, and when she gets out, we see her on
Mm,
the phone with her parents saying thank you. I feel like that scene is just, it's a healing scene by itself. It's just after I can't talk about this movie without using the word rebelling, but after rebelling with like her parents and
mm,
after just always finding challenging everybody around her,
yeah.
she goes to New York and then she realizes that no, like she has so much gratefulness in her heart towards her parents and her life before. And I think that's my favorite scene. What about you?
I love that scene too,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's capsules everything that I said earlier when I said that Lady Bird is a movie that makes you look back at who you were with a lot of compassion, respect, and empathy. And I feel like it was only when she moved to New York that she was able to do that. And we see, like, there is a specific moments when she takes that decision. It's when she's at a party, she's drunk, she's talking to a guy, and he asks her about her name. And that was the first time that she tells him that her name is Christine and not Lady Bird.
Yeah.
And then when she was hangover, she goes to church. She used to hate church when she
Yeah.
was back home. So it's really interesting. It leads back to that concept of you try to run so far from who you are only to try to find yourself everywhere in that new place.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting.
Mark Twain said it. It's a man travels around the world in search of who they are, only to come back home and find it. And I feel
Yeah.
like this encapsulates it so well because I feel the same way when I go back to Lebanon. Like when I'm back there, I feel like a teenager again. It feels
Mm.
like everything I did here, every like all the progress I've did as a person, it's just
Gone.
gone.
Same.
I'm like, I'm in my room. I'm like, it's so funny, and I love it. I love having the chance to go back and be able to connect to my old
Mm.
self. It's like our home becomes a time capsule
Yeah.
that we just visit and we're like rediscovering who we were
Mhm.
in a new way. And it's like we become, because we've have so much new experience, we go back there and I don't know about you, but I look at myself as if I'm like my older sister, and
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just it's this weird feeling, but I love it so much.
But I'm glad that we are able to look at
Yeah,
ourselves with under this light.
yeah,
Because but I feel like even if you didn't have, you had like complicated experiences, and of course like everyone had their struggles growing
yeah.
up, you could still like look at that person as someone who tried.
Yes, of
Yeah.
course, always, always, and that's something I've learned growing up.
Hmm.
As long as I'm doing my best, no matter the outcome, you can't get mad at yourself.
I
Like,
love that.
yeah,
There is another scene that I really loved, and that scene is actually one of my personal favorite. Actually, it's the scene of Saoirse Ronan and Lucas Haig. I don't know if you know who he is. It's
it's her
the
first love
boyfriend.
interest, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, the one who lives in the beautiful house.
yeah.
Yeah,
And it's just this scene where they're running in a field, they're kissing, it's the sunset is there, it's so beautiful. And funny thing, there is like this video on the internet of Greta Gerwig directing this scene, and it was like, even the person who took that video took such a beautiful video of Greta filming Saoirse and Luca, and it went viral, and people started to dress up in Halloween as Greta Gerwig directing Lady Bird.
oh my God, should we do that next
Yeah,
year?
isn't that like the most Gen Z thing
Yeah,
ever?
yeah. It's such a good costume for like a couple and a third wheel.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
it could be like a good third wheel costume. And I also want to talk about the acting.
Yes.
Can we start with Luca Higgs? When I've seen him on Lady Bird, I thought that he was going to be the next Timothée Chalamet before Timothée Chalamet became Timothée Chalamet, because that was his one of the roles that made him Timothée
Yeah.
Chalamet. He's also in the movie. What
Yeah.
do you think of Timothée Chalamet? Let's start with
Tim,
Timmy.
I love how this guy can have the smallest roles and still have this great, outstanding performance. And I hated him in that movie, which means he
Really?
was such a good actor. Yeah, he was very snooty, pretentious, very
I
like
loved him.
nonchalant, and I love that about him, but
Mhm.
like the character itself
Yeah,
himself, I don't think I would have liked this kind of character in my life.
I loved his character, because where would you find in a party someone reading a book next to the pool alone?
Yeah.
Like, just that on its own would make you love that character, because it speaks about who he is. And yeah,
Do you think he was really interested in reading, or was he just doing it because he was also like trying to stand out as
I
a
mean,
teenager?
when you're young, you're very pretentious, and
Yeah,
you have like all of these fake ideas about who you are and how you understand the world better. And actually, okay, I have this specific opinion about Kyle. His name is Kyle in the movie, the character that's played by Timothée Chalamet. I think it was a defense mechanism, because his dad was had cancer, and therefore, to him, he tried to convince himself that nothing mattered because his dad was going to die. And he literally told Lady Bird that, they had this scene where when she got mad at him, and he was telling her like, people are dying, like there's war out there. And she told him, not everyone has to be war, like people can
yeah,
be sad. And then when she went downstairs, she saw his dad with like a breathing machine and everything. So I have a lot of empathy towards him, because I don't think that you could be that closed off and that isolated, and that's immersed into these fictional characters that only exist in books, if you're not internally very
yeah.
unsatisfied with your current life.
It's true. I think no, I agree. I like that. I like that vision. I like that perspective. I feel like teenagers are always trying to create escapes
Hmm.
for themselves, and Kyle's escape was in his books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you
Okay.
think of Sersha?
Saoirse, oh my God. I can't, great actress.
Hmm.
That was Foe was the second movie I watched of her. I haven't watched a lot of her movies, and I just loved how she went from a teenager to a young adult. And I just love the maturity she has in her acting. Like even when she's playing a teenager, even when she has the wildest roles or whatever, she's very authentic to her
Yeah.
characters, and I think that's amazing. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of hers now.
Hmm.
What about you?
I love her.
Yeah.
She was very natural
Mm-hmm.
at this role. She was completely believable. I could totally believe that she's 15. Yeah, she was great, and her comedic timing was perfect. Everything was so believable in this movie. Laurie Metcalf was my favorite, though. Her mom,
Okay, yeah.
she was amazing.
Yeah.
She portrayed that very annoying slash caring mom energy perfectly.
She had a lot of burden and you could
Yeah.
feel it. Like she was worried.
Hmm.
Also, she's a nurse in the movie in a psychiatric hospital, I think. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. So you see that in the acting. You see the burden she has, the awareness that yeah, I
In
just
her on her face.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. Great actors. It's
Also, there's Beanie Beanie Stanfield. It's I think it's Jonah Hill's sister, Lady Bird's best friend.
okay.
Do you see who I'm talking about? Well,
Yes.
I'll add her name
Yes. Okay.
on the video. It's supposed to be here magically, but yeah, she was great. Um, like she was so natural too.
That's the friend she falls apart from at some
Yeah,
point, right? Yeah, yeah, I
yeah.
remember.
I just loved that movie. Everything was light, and it wasn't an insult to what the teenage experience is like we can see in some movies right now. I couldn't help but compare this to Mean Girls.
Mean
I know
Girls?
they're very
Yeah.
different, but like this is, and like I was going through this whole identity crisis this week about what should I watch and how low is my bar and standards when it comes to movies, and I don't think I could have the same opinions about Mean Girls after watching Lady Bird.
Just to go back to the fact that you said it wasn't an insult to teenagehood, I think that teenagehood is such a key moment in
Hmm.
everybody's life, and
Yeah,
it's so important to take it delicately and to take it seriously because,
definitely.
yes, teenagers are still young, they're kids and all, but I think that the values you build as a teenagers is what's gonna help you build your future, the decisions you make and everything. And yes, you can like change throughout like your young adulthood, and that's also a very important part of life, but there's something that I just love so much about teenagers. As annoying
Hmm.
as some people think they
Yeah,
are, I think they're the I don't know. Even when they're trying to discover themselves and
yeah.
they're not being honest to
Hmm.
themselves or they don't seem to be, I think they're the most authentic, most I don't know. I just have like a soft spot for teenagerhood because
Definitely.
yeah.
This is when your dreams start to form. And
Yeah.
I feel like, in general, from what you could see in the world or even in movies, like teenagehood is when you start to form your dreams, and then as an adult you start to let go of
Yes.
them
Yeah.
slowly and
Yeah.
to root yourself more into reality. But yeah,
You
what's
should stay
reality?
connected. What's reality? No, that's a whole other conversation. But I think you should stay connected to your teenage dreams, and that's the hard part.
Yeah,
And I think that's what we're trying to do with this podcast, you
yeah,
know?
and that's what Lady Bird forces you to do, is
Yeah,
to remember those dreams,
yeah,
and to maybe like remember some of them that you've forgotten,
yeah,
or that you let go of, and because you owe it to yourself. Now you are the Greta Gerwig version of Ladybird. And so you have to pursue those dreams that you promised yourself, your Ladybird self, to pursue.
yeah. I love that. I really love that. So basically, if you feel like you're disconnecting from your dreams,
Mm,
from your flame, just watch that movie and
yeah,
you'll remember. And it's very refreshing.
it is, it
Yeah,
is.
I love that. I had something else I wanted to say, but I forgot about it. Oh well, we'll remember later if we remember,
Yeah.
right? Anything else about the movie?
um
It's an A24 movie, right?
it's an A24
It's just
movie.
crazy. They have their signature
They
at
do.
this point.
When it
Yeah.
comes to the colors, the
Yeah.
shots, it's so, their movies are different, but they're all great. It's like you go into them expecting that they would be great. You're
Yeah.
pre-prepared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's those kind of movies that when you leave the theater, you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then you look at the sun outside if you go through the day and you're
Mhm.
like, oh, there's the world out there. Completely forgot about that, you
Yeah.
know? That feeling you get when you go to the theaters, I just love it. See, okay, now I remember what I wanted to say. I wanted to go back to
Mhm.
the standards thing about how you were talking about
Yeah.
movies, because I do agree that there's a lot of commercial movies right now, but I think that there's still this small, very exclusive segment of movies that are still very meaningful and all. And I think it's always been this way. It's just that back in the days, the movies we remember from the 90s
Mhm.
and 80s, those were the best of the best. It doesn't mean that bad movies
Yeah.
weren't made back then. It's just that we don't remember them anymore. And I feel like Lady Bird is one of the movies that will stand out a few years later.
Mhm. I totally agree. I mean, you're always gonna find movies that are very mid, or like are just there to entertain you. But I feel like what gets the hype right now is movies that are made to be
Consumed.
consumed,
Yeah.
and you just like you forget about them as soon as you leave the movie theater, and it's a very inane experience, and therefore it's, to me at least as a cinephile, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
And so I just want to be not careful, I would say, about what I watch, because I do think that in order to know what's good you need to also watch what's bad.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
I
think
just
more
want,
aware.
yeah, more critical about what I
Yeah.
watch.
That's what we're doing. We're couch critics.
We're
So
couch critics. Yeah,
is that a wrap?
it's a wrap. Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching. That's a wrap on Lady Bird, The Dreamers, a bit of The Edge of 17, just like
Mhm.
a bunch, our thoughts on movies in general.
Yeah,
And yeah, we hope you enjoyed watching this video. Leave your opinions in the comments below.
and please like and subscribe, and we'll see you
Yes.
next week, next Sunday.
See you next
Bye.
week. Bye.